Hello, welcome back. And in today's video, as you can see by the title, we will be talking about what it's like to be a female stagehand, particularly a small female stagehand. If you don't know what a stagehand is, it's basically a person who works backstage at different events. It could be theater, it could be event production. They're a little bit different, or quite a bit different. But anyway, it's you either help set up the stage, you do the sound, or you do the lights. Basically anything having to do with helping set up for a show on or around the stage, or the wherever the main event is, basically makes you a stagehand. There are also, there are specific titles for each of those things too. You could be a stagehand where you're just helping push road cases, you're not actually setting anything up, or you're helping build the actual stage. You can also be a stagehand who does lights, and if you're helping set up lights, then you're a lighting tech. If you're helping set up the sound, you're a sound tech or engineer, whatever, wherever you fall in that category. The more you know, the more you set up, the higher your title is. If you're running a board during a show, then you're an engineer. If you're just setting up and breaking it down, you're a tech. Anyway, so what it's like to be a small female stagehand. A lot of times, people assume that you are incapable of doing certain things, especially if it's someone you don't know, if it's a new company you started working with, new people. If you're new to wherever you just started working as a stagehand, people will assume that you don't know anything. And on the one hand, that's a good thing, because there are definitely people that act like they know stuff and then do it all wrong, and everyone else has to fix it for them. So, I kind of get that, but at the same time, it's also really annoying when you do know what you're doing and people assume that you don't. You kind of have to put yourself in there and make it known, make it visibly known that you do know what you're doing. Let's see. But so also when you've worked with this new group for a little while and they see that you are capable at your job, you do know what you're doing, then it becomes a little bit better. People trust you a little bit more, people respect you a little bit more. But at the beginning, you might be a little disrespected. That's kind of just how it is, unfortunately. But that kind of applies to any stagehand, male or female. It could be either way. I feel like it definitely is a little bit worse if you're a female stagehand. It is usually assumed that most male stagehands know what they're doing. So there is definitely a little bit of sexism here and there. But I feel like people do try to be aware of it now, maybe more so than before, because I feel like there's more female techs and female stagehands getting into this industry, and you being successful at it. So now it's kind of like, if someone is being openly sexist, you need to tell your supervisor, and it'll get taken care of, because it's unprofessional. It shouldn't be allowed to begin with. So if it is a problem, then basically you shouldn't be afraid to speak up, because that shouldn't be happening. So the other part of it, again, partly because of being female, and especially if you're a smaller female, because there are some larger females that no one questions what they can pick up or put down or move around. They trust them enough just because of their size that they're able to move things around. But when you're smaller, when you're someone smaller like me, people assume that you can't move certain things or can't lift certain things. And while that is true to an extent, there are definitely heavier things that I can't move, or shouldn't move, really. Maybe I can, but I probably shouldn't. there's definitely a lot that I can move and that I can pick up, and people, I feel like, are a little bit surprised to see sometimes, of how much I actually am able to do. But regardless, in a situation where there is a piece of heavy equipment, you should not be carrying it by yourself anyway. There should always be at least 2 or more, depending on how big it is, how heavy it is, people on that equipment moving it around and, setting it into place wherever it needs to go. But yeah, so that is kind of an unfortunate part of it, is that people assume that you can't do anything. But kind of a pro to that, to like the positive side to that, is that a few years ago I was doing sound, and then I recently switched to lighting, but the work I was doing was more hectic than it is now, and it was more stressful, and it was more heavy lifting, I guess, than it is now. And it was a lot of people trying to prove to those around them that they are strong and that they can pick this up, pick that up, especially, the guys. That's just how it is. So if it's in a situation like that, if it's like me and maybe another girl, right, with a bunch of other guys working around us, they'll try to like get in there and be like, oh, do you need help with this? If they're being nice about it. Or they might just not even say anything and just, like, this is an especially extreme, I guess, rude scenario, but they could just take the piece of equipment or whatever you're trying to move just from under your hands and just not say anything and just move it themselves. That's extreme. I feel like that usually doesn't happen, at least maybe not anymore. But so if there is something heavy and a guy just kind of swoops in and tries to do it themselves in their, I'm a macho man, look at me, I'm so strong way, then the positive side of that is you end up doing less work, because they need to prove to everyone around them that they are strong and all that. So if that's the case, we usually step back and just let them do whatever, because in the end it turns out that it ends up being that they do more work for the same amount of money. So it's like, I'm not even mad about it. If you want to do that work, that extra work, be my guest. We're getting paid the same. This can go into a whole other, I guess, conversation, because people do get paid different rates, but if you're like in a union or something, it's usually the same rate for everyone. So yeah, there's that, where it's kind of like, okay, well, if you want to be all macho, just go ahead. I don't need to prove to anyone really what I can or can't do, although it is nice to be appreciated and to be respected. So another thing that ends up happening is, after people initially assume that you're basically useless, because you're a female and a small female, that what happens is, after, if you are actually useful and you do know what you're doing, and or at least you show them that you want to learn, they start respecting you a little bit more. And then it's almost like they get like impressed with how much work you're actually able to do. It's kind of funny. It like the situation like gets turned around. One of my bosses a few years ago, I remember this one time, me and this other girl were carrying, like, I don't even know what it was, some kind of big thing, but it was the two of us. And he said, oh, are you sure you can handle that? And obviously that was really annoying, but I don't remember if I said anything. I probably said, yeah, I'm fine. And then, like, after working with him for like 2 or 3 years, there was another time we were moving cases around, and he got a lot more casual, I guess, when talking to me or to the other people that started with me. And actually, this one time he actually admitted that I am a hard worker. And I've had that happen a few times, where people who don't know me work with me a few times, and then they turn around and they say, or even once maybe, like, I've had strangers that I didn't know on a gig work with me and tell me that I'm a hard worker because I'm small, but if I'm working, I'm working. I'm not gonna just stand around and sit on my butt. Like, I'm not that kind of person. Like, if I'm there, I want to be doing something. I don't want to just be sitting around. Although, yeah, it's kind of nice to get paid for not doing anything, but on the other hand, I'd rather just be at home then and do something productive at home. Like, if I'm at work, I want to be getting stuff done so, we can get out of there and go home. Yeah, so it's kind of funny when people kind of switch gears like that and realize, oh, like, this person is actually capable at their job. Crazy. So yeah, another part of it, this is just again for all stagehands, not for specifically female, but you do when you do this kind of work, you get to see a lot of really interesting places that you normally wouldn't go to. You would either have no reason to, or if it's like a private event, right, you wouldn't be invited to that. It depends on what kind of shows you work, because some people work like concerts and stuff. That's a little bit of a different environment. And then I'm doing event production, so that's usually private or corporate events, and in that case I get to see a lot of rich fancy places basically that I would not be going to otherwise unless I was working there. So that's kind of cool. It's really interesting seeing all these like mansions or just crazy properties. So that's cool. And yeah, again, that just comes with the job. That has nothing to do with male or female. Also, you get to use some fun tools. Again, though, you have to kind of prove to your coworkers or to your boss that you know how to use them, or that you want to learn, and they will teach you. If you show interest in whatever you're doing, then they will respond positively, and they will see that you actually want to learn what you're doing and you want to try to be good at it, instead of someone that's kind of just doing this for the money, yeah. And I guess the last thing I wrote down a little list of things to cover. The last weird part about being a stagehand is the gap that you feel when you go to these fancy places between the people paying for the event or hosting the events and the workers. It's definitely a very different atmosphere. Workers, that could include catering, it could include decor, and then stagehands, techs, people like us. We definitely sometimes get kind of looked down upon. Not always. There are definitely some people that appreciate the work we put in, but there's a lot of people that don't realize how much work gets put into these events, and it's crazy. It could be from a couple hours to a week, a month. I don't super long setup. It could be crazy. The amount of money people spend on these events is ridiculous. But you could definitely feel that gap between the person you're working for and you and your coworkers, and we all kind of make jokes about it, and we make fun of it. We try to make it pleasant, I guess, for all of us, but it is interesting. It's just a really strange feeling, and I've always been into backstage stuff. I was a theater major in college, I was an art major in high school, and even in high school I went to an art high school, and there was always, again, kind of a small gap between the art majors and the drama or vocal or dance majors that were more I guess their artwork was seen through them as a person, versus as an art major your artwork is seen through your artwork, right? The paper or the canvas or whatever it is, instead of your face and your body, and so there was always a feeling of art majors being underappreciated, and that's kind of how it feels like being in tech. People don't realize how much work it is, and sometimes it goes kind of, it gets a little underappreciated. But at the same time, I enjoy the work because I love seeing the transformation of something going from, you know, a basic like white room, or even just like a regular hotel room, that gets just completely transformed into something else. It's crazy. Or we do like some tent shows also. So the tent, you know, again, just basic white tent, nothing crazy, nothing fancy. You add the decor in there, you add the lights in there, and it's like Narnia. It's like a different world. So I do love that part of it, and I feel like sometimes, like, yeah, it gets annoying sometimes that we're a little underappreciated, but on the other hand, I enjoy the work I do. I enjoy seeing the transformations and seeing, you know, people's reactions to like the end result. So it doesn't really matter to me, I guess, in the end, how people feel about the actual workers, because there's definitely people that think we're like nobody. But it's it's part of the job. That's just how it is. It's a little bit classist, but that's just how it works. If you are working as a tech or stagehand, setting up for huge events, there's gonna be people who are hosting those events, who are paying for those events, that look down on you. It just it just is what it is. Again, not all the time, but usually that's how it works. It's the kind of rich versus poor aspect of it. Even if you're a tech or a stagehand that's not like super poor, you might still get looked upon. But also, usually, if that's the case, then you already made a name for yourself in the industry, and people know you both from the tech side, you know, your coworkers, and from the, I guess, face, I guess, you put on when you are working a show. So for the hosts, for the people who are actually there during for the event. So if you make a name for yourself, then you start getting, like, you know, a reputation. People might start to recognize you, or start to, I guess, respect you more. But as like a lower tier tech, unfortunately, not a lot of respect there. You really do have to work your way up to gain people's trust and respect. Yeah, so kind of a long video, but I've been wanting to make this one for a while. My nose really itches. Oh my god. Ugh. Okay. So, I hope you enjoyed that. Give me a like and a subscribe and perhaps a comment, and have a good day. Bye.